They thought I followed Max's shady orders because I was naive. What they didn't know was I'd already opened a second window on the security terminal, and I wasn't the one being watched. Mondays had their own smell, a blend of burnt coffee, stale air conditioning, and that faint electrical warmth rising from the vents under the floor. At 8:56 a.m., I sat at my cubicle, second from the glass partition, pretending to finish a spreadsheet. In reality, I was watching Max pace outside the server room like a man rehearsing a crime. He wore his badge clipped upside down. That was his tell. Anytime Max was trying to bluff his way through a security tier, the badge flipped. Like the universe itself was warning us, don't trust this man. He paused when he caught me looking. Just a half second. Then he nodded toward the server room door. Just come, he mouthed. No briefing, no Slack ping, just the stare and that jerky twitch of his thumb. I closed my laptop with slow precision, stood, and followed. 2 cubicles down, an engineer named Leon peeked up, her eyes narrow behind smudged lenses. She saw me trailing him, frowned, and tapped something quickly into her terminal. I would remember that tap later. Inside the server room, the air dropped a full 10 degrees. The hum of routers and blinking lights wrapped around us like a whispering forest. Max didn't speak until the door clicked shut behind me. Then he turned, hand already inside a panel. Just leave, don't ask, he said. His tone wasn't sharp. It was careful, like someone moving glass. I began. He cut me off without looking. Go, now. I went. But as I pulled the door open again, I glanced back. He was pushing a red Ethernet cable into port 9C, an unused backup node we weren't supposed to touch without dual authorization. That cable wasn't logged, and we both knew it. At 12:17 p.m., just after microwaved curry had overtaken the floor, the audit email came in. Subject line: Access Policy Review. Urgent. Every terminal pinged. I clicked mine open. It was a table of security logs, badge entries, admin interface queries, USB attempts. One column was highlighted in yellow. Unauthorized physical access. 09:03 a.m. Next to it, every badge ID was listed. Every name, except mine. Leon stood up so fast her chair squeaked. She's the only one who didn't show up in the log, she said, loud enough for 3 rows to hear. My mouth went dry. Someone had removed me from the security log, not hidden, erased, and the only person who had that level of access was still in the server room. I felt the glances starting, the sharp whispers pretending to be questions. One guy in HR already had the audit tab open, flicking through it like it was a gossip blog. The engineer at the far end, Carl, the quiet one, tilted his head and murmured, "She's not in the log. That's worse than being in it." That's when I realized this wasn't about Max anymore. This was about me. They wanted someone to blame, and I had just been erased into the perfect suspect. The hallway light flickered, and for a second, I felt like I was standing on a stage I never asked to be on. What Max plugged in wasn't the worst part. What he unplugged was. The worst part about being erased is that no one tells you it's happening. You don't feel your name vanish. You don't hear the silence that replaces your login credentials. But you do notice the glances, like someone closed a door behind your back and everyone else heard the click. By 12:30, I was back at my desk pretending to scroll through JIRA tickets. But I wasn't reading. My eyes flicked back to the audit email, then to the security log I downloaded on instinct. I shouldn't have had access to that level of detail, but Max had once given me temporary clearance for a maintenance request, and I'd quietly kept the credentials active, just in case. Looks like today was the case. I opened the local backup of the logs, cross-referenced with my time-stamped keycard data. My badge had beeped in. At 9:01, but in the official audit, the entry was gone. Not altered, not flagged. Wiped. Do you know anything about this? Leon's voice broke through my thoughts like a snap. She stood by my cubicle, holding a printed copy of the security log. Printed. Old school, like she didn't trust the screen anymore. I just went to help Max. He asked me. You don't show up. I know. Her eyes narrowed. That's not good. I tilted my screen. You think I wiped myself out? I think someone wants it to look that way. Micro crew chalk. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced down, then looked up again. Tense. Facilities just said the internal server heat map spiked at 9:05 a.m. Like a power surge? No, she said slowly. Like someone turned off a thermal monitor in only one quadrant, the exact spot Max was standing. I followed her down the hall to the engineer pod, 4 monitors clustered under a sad, dying ficus. She plugged in a flash drive. Her fingers moved fast. She didn't talk. I respected that. A map of the server racks blinked on, color-coded, with live data. Quadrant C9 flickered, then faded to gray. That zone hasn't reported temps since this morning, she said. Micro Kruchok. Can someone disable just one zone? I asked. Only with admin root, she replied. Who has that? She didn't answer, just turned her monitor so no one else could see. Then she opened the access policy folder. Inside were the authorization trees. Max had admin. So did the CISO. And to my surprise, so did I. Wait. No, I was removed from that tier last month, I said. Not according to this, she said, clicking my profile. My name was there, glowing in blue, elevated clearance, but the timestamp said granted yesterday. I staggered back. Someone added me yesterday? Someone set you up yesterday, she corrected. She leaned closer, voice low. Listen, if someone's trying to frame you, it means they expect you to panic. Don't. You still have your access. Use it. I whispered, You're not scared helping me? She smiled dryly. I already pinged internal audit about the thermal dead zone, and if I go down, I'm not going alone. At 2:11 p.m., I got an Outlook invite. Urgent. Clarification meeting, server incident. From HR with a CC to legal. Max wasn't invited. I clicked accept with a calm hand and a racing pulse. But before I left, I opened the security terminal archive. Quietly, one window in full screen, one minimized, running a screen recorder. If someone wanted to erase me, I'd keep a copy of the erasure. They planned for me to panic. They didn't plan for what I found under the audit logs. Ever been blamed for something you didn't even know you were part of? Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do with access to the erased logs? The conference room was colder than usual. Not air conditioning cold, controlled cold. HR's signature move, subtle discomfort, just enough to make you second-guess your own skin. I walked in to find 3 people already seated. Karen from HR, who always smelled like printer toner. Victor, a legal rep I'd only seen in all-hands meetings. And Ashok, our internal audit liaison, currently scanning a stack of printed access logs like they were suspect invoices. No Max. Please sit, Karen said, without smiling. The room smelled like decaf and toner. I sat, quietly, predictably. We've flagged an anomaly in this morning's server logs. Victor began, sliding a highlighted sheet toward me. We're hoping you can explain why your badge access doesn't appear, despite physical presence in a restricted zone. His tone was like latex gloves, sterile, practiced. I looked at the sheet. It was the same log, scrubbed clean of me. I didn't erase myself, I said evenly. No one's accusing you, Karen jumped in. Yet, Ashok murmured, almost too low to hear. Micro Kruchok. I slid my laptop open. Karen tensed. This is a clarification meeting, not an interrogation. Then, I'm here to clarify, I said. I mirrored my screen to the wall monitor and pulled up the backup logs, the ones with my original entry time-stamped at 9:01 a.m., then the edit history. Then the last admin access, Max. 9:04 a.m., IP match, internal server terminal, rack C9. Silence, longer than they meant. Ashok leaned forward. Where did you get this? I kept my audit cache. Old habit, I said. Max trained me. Victor scratched his chin. Your access tier was elevated yesterday. Any idea why? I hesitated, then tapped again. Pulled up my role change log, modified by Max justification field. Blank, Karen's voice dropped. This isn't standard procedure. No, I said, it's not. Ashok took over then, scrolling deeper into my cache. He found the thermal monitoring logs from quadrant C9, confirming a shutoff that exactly matched Max's server activity window. The thermal dead zone, he whispered, mostly to himself. Why kill heat sensors unless you're planting something? Victor folded his arms. We'll need to pause this meeting. This goes beyond HR protocol. You think? I said before I could stop myself. Micro Kruchok. But the room wasn't done turning. Karen leaned over, her voice suddenly gentler. You did the right thing coming here, but you should know. If your screen recording exists, you need to upload it to the official chain now, before legal reclassifies this as obstruction. I nodded, then slid over a flash drive. Already labeled, already sealed. She blinked. You were ready, she said. No, I replied. I just knew Max would eventually try something that required me to be ready. At 5:12 p.m., I walked past Max's office, dark, chair empty, door open. Inside, someone had left a printed memo on his desk. Meeting rescheduled, internal affairs, 7:09 a.m. I didn't smile, but I also didn't stop walking. The floor was quieter than usual. People had started whispering instead of talking. Leon gave me a nod from behind her monitor, subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it. I nodded back. Sometimes survival isn't dramatic. It's just the quiet act of not panicking and documenting everything. By Tuesday morning, the server room was under lockdown. A red sign blinked across the badge reader, access restricted, internal audit in progress. Max hadn't shown up. Rumor was he'd been asked to take a few personal days, which in our office was a softer way of saying lawyer up. Still, no one spoke it out loud. In open plan offices, truths only lived inside Teams messages and unsent drafts. I logged in, like always, and sipped my burnt coffee, like always. But the atmosphere had changed. People were watching me now, but not with suspicion, with caution, with curiosity, like I was the character in the movie who knew something they didn't. Leon slid into the chair beside mine, her laptop open, her voice low. Check the patch update list. I raised an eyebrow. For which server? Not which, she said. When? She pushed her screen toward me. The patch list showed a new entry dated 7:23 a.m. before most people had arrived. Patch name, Delta. Ghost, initiated by temporary credential. Sizing 001. Beta flagged. Unauthorized. Someone snuck in a patch before lockdown? I asked. She nodded. That's not even the worst part. She tapped into the log. This patch didn't fix anything. It disabled 3 internal alerts and rerouted outbound server traffic through an unlisted node. Internal Affairs is calling it a data siphon. I felt my chest tighten. And they think I did that? No, they don't. Her voice dropped. But Max wasn't working alone. Micro Kruchok. That sentence sank into me like a cold needle. The idea that this wasn't just one rogue admin, that maybe more people had access to ghost credentials, that maybe the access policies were riddled with silent exceptions. It meant Max wasn't the threat. He was a symptom. I opened my own logs, started digging. Hidden in the access policy.backup file, I found something strange. A duplicate profile, same name as mine, different ID, slightly altered badge number, no image, no timestamp history, but active permissions, full root access. This clone account, I whispered. It's been shadowing me. Leon nodded grimly. And every time something sketchy happens, it's used. So you're the one who looks dirty. I leaned back, feeling like the ceiling lights were buzzing louder than before. Max didn't need to erase me. He needed a ghost of me, to act, while I took the blame. At 11:04 a.m., I opened a help ticket, then another, then 6 more, each one quiet, precise. To the engineers I trusted, to the ones who didn't look away last time, attaching files, logs, the Delta patch, the shadow profile. I called the request, Access Policy, Sanity Check Round 2. By 4:00 p.m., I got a Teams ping from a username I didn't recognize. Syswatch Arc Ghost. Message. Nice try, but you're still 1 move behind. No avatar, no history, just 5 chilling words that made the temperature around me drop again. Micro Kruchok. I started to type back, then stopped. Instead, I opened my recorder. I wasn't replying. I was logging. Because if they were watching me through fake credentials, then they'd also underestimate what I could track in return. And for the first time, I stopped defending and started hunting. By Wednesday, the office operated on 2 layers, the one above ground, full of nervous small talk and HR-mandated donut trays, and the one humming just beneath it, encrypted threads, locked terminals, engineers who no longer looked up from their screens. And I had both feet in the second layer now. The ghost account, my shadow twin, was still active, but it had evolved. It no longer mirrored me. It anticipated me. Every query I ran, every log I pinged, it left a trail. Subtle edits, delay pings, tampered metadata. It was playing chess. But I wasn't playing fair anymore. I stopped using my workstation, set up a clean device in the old help desk cubicle. No cameras, no badge scanner, no linked Outlook. A ghost desk for a ghost user. I cross-checked login tokens, looked for overlap between Saiseng, Orowayan Beta, and other credential branches. Found 3 matches. One belonged to Max, one to a terminated contractor from 6 months ago, and the last. Micro Kruchok belonged to Karen. HR Karen, Toner Karen. Let's clarify, Karen. Leon and I stared at the screen. She granted herself override privileges? I whispered. No, Leon said. She buried override privileges into the onboarding policy 6 months ago, hidden inside a compliance update no one reviewed. I pulled the file. HR access, policy, review Bobby Sixcat docs. On page 47 in 9-point font, Sub-Tier 3 credential exception permitted in onboarding simulations with discretionary override scope, temporary. Legalese, sure, but to anyone who knew the system. It was a skeleton key. I felt nausea crawl up my throat. This wasn't Max's plan. It was hers. Leon nodded. Max was sloppy. Karen wrote the playbook. We sat in silence. Then I did something dangerous. I opened Audit Node 4, where the redundant security logs were stored, the place Karen thought no one else had keys to. Inside, dozens of badge reassignments, falsified exit records for terminated contractors, access trail spoofers, and a long, continuous string of activity under one fake user tag, HR Training Override SICX. Micro Kruchok, it had uploaded packets. But not just internally. There were traces of external pings, tiny breadcrumbs, enough to suggest data had been leaking out. And one packet, dated last Friday, was labeled Employee Dossiers Backup.zip. That wasn't ghost work. That was espionage. I closed the file, backed up the contents to a secure container, labeled it If I Disappear on Zip, and sent it to myself, twice. Once to my work inbox, once to my personal encrypted cloud. Leon watched without speaking. Then, finally asked, "What now?" I answered slowly. Now we stop being in the story and start writing the ending. Thursday morning began with silence, the kind that feels intentional. No Slack notifications, no quick syncs, no Outlook pings, just the steady hum of uncertainty, as if the whole office knew something had shifted, but no one wanted to say it first. Then, at 9:46 a.m., the intercom clicked on, something that hadn't happened in years. All personnel, please remain at your workstations. Internal systems audit is now in progress. 2 seconds later, every shared drive froze. And just like that, the building was quarantined. I didn't panic, because I'd already moved my pieces. The ghost credentials, flagged, cloned, documented, and distributed to 3 separate engineers who'd agreed to be quiet, fast, and neutral. The shadow badge trail, overwritten with time-stamped verification logs pulled from the offsite backup node Leon had discovered in a deprecated staging folder, because Max had never cleaned up his dev messes. And the audit triggers, they were mine. Micro Kruchok. You see, the internal systems audit wasn't Karen's move. It was ours. 3 days ago, I had quietly filed an escalation request under Policy 4.2.7, Request for Third-Party Compliance Probe in case of internal conflict of interest. It required signatures from 2 engineers and someone from legal. I had 5, including Ashok. At 10:15, I got a message from a guest badge email, IA Field Agent 202B, subject. Interview scheduled, room A3, no signature, no attachments, but I knew what it meant. Inside room A3, the air was colder than HR's version. A man in a navy jacket sat waiting, a steel tablet open in front of him. Beside him, a woman in internal affairs gray, watching me like she already knew the answers. I sat. No one asked how I was. No one offered coffee. He spoke first. 3 user profiles, 1 identity, 1 employee reactivated post-termination. 1 access policy embedded in an HR compliance doc with embedded shell commands, and 1 transfer log to an external node routed through a falsified engineering credential. I nodded. No need to play dumb. He continued. Karen's override protocol was linked to a closed contractor agreement. The contractor was her brother-in-law. Micro Kruchok. That was news. But I didn't flinch. We have her badge trail. We have the logs. What we don't have is her response to your report. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't bring her in yet? He smiled without humor. We wanted to hear your final account first. So I gave it. In full. The erased log, the ghost account, the thermal blackout, the delta patch, the HR override, the training protocol masking a data siphon. I ended by placing the USB drive on the table. One I hadn't sent. One they didn't know existed. The one with Karen's voice. 3 days ago, I'd left a mic running near her office. No permission, no ethics committee, just 1 sentence, whispered too low for HR's own recorder to catch. Max is reckless, but he does what I tell him. The man in the jacket didn't react. He just pressed a button. The room's speaker crackled. Security. Initiate protocol 9.3. Locate and remove badge ID 1007. Karen's ID. I sat back. Breathed. And for the first time all week, let it happen. By Friday, the air smelled different. It wasn't just the absence of Karen's perfume, or the fact that Max's desk had been cleared overnight, his monitor powered off, and badge photo gone from the internal directory. It was the silence that comes after a storm, when people suddenly walk slower, speak softer, and glance at each other with the quiet agreement. We all saw it. We just don't say it. But I wasn't part of that silence anymore. I didn't walk slower. My access had been fully restored. Not just the usual clearance. Root level, with a badge audit trail that now showed every login, every override, every whisper of my digital twin. It was like watching a ghost die in reverse. The ghost hadn't vanished. It had been caged, documented, time-stamped, archived. Its last login? 2 minutes before Karen's badge was deactivated on Thursday. Micro Kruchok. But ghosts don't just disappear. They leave fingerprints. Inside the security log dashboard, I found them. Tiny misalignments in the timestamp headers, fields that had been rewritten, then rewritten again. Someone had been in the server room after the lockdown, and it wasn't Karen. Her badge was already revoked, and Max was out of the building. So who? I pulled the visitor badge logs, cross-referenced with the access policy exception tracker. One name stood out. Chris F. Infrastructure consultant badge issued Wednesday morning. Authorized by interim HR clearance Tier 2, upgraded to Tier 3 by noon. I'd never met Chris. But his audit trail danced like someone who knew exactly where not to step. No admin consoles, no security terminals, only secondary mirrors, logs that shadowed the real activity. I turned to Leon, who was now fully looped in, sitting across from me with her eyes wide. We missed a step, I said. This wasn't about Max, not even about Karen. She tilted her head. Then what? This was a sweep, a cleanup. Max was the fool. Karen was the lever. But Chris, he was the cleaner. A third layer, one that didn't show up in any organizational chart. A role that lived between audits and silence. Micro Kruchok. At 3:17 p.m., I received a private message from Ashok. No greeting, no small talk. Just one screenshot. Chris F's profile deactivated. Reason: termination, non-compliance with internal policy 9.3, then another, a redacted file titled Protocol 9.3 Shadow Contractors, Declassified Segment. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, a list of names, most crossed out. One still active, not Chris, not Karen, me. The final line chilled me. Subject retained for observation. Authorization status, conditional. Clearance tier, monitored. They didn't just investigate me, they absorbed me. Now I was part of the system, A line in the access policy, an exception in someone else's log. There's a strange quiet that comes after exposure, not the loud kind, where there's yelling, emails, lawyers storming down the hallway, but the kind where the system tightens around you, smiles harder, schedules more wellness check-ins, sends you updates about policies that didn't exist a week ago. I wasn't fired, I wasn't praised, I was filed, somewhere between employee of interest and internal containment protocol. At 9:01 a.m. Friday, my Outlook updated with a calendar invite, tier review, compliance, and governance. No sender, no reply option. Room B5, the soundproof one. The same one where Karen used to take people when they had potential. Now they were taking me. I entered the room with a notebook. Old school. No device, no signal. They noticed. A woman in a navy blazer sat with her arms folded. No introduction. Just, you've been looped into Tier 3C as a monitored clearance holder. You are aware of this? Yes, I answered. But that wasn't what I meant. I meant, I'm aware that I'm now inside the walls of something I can't name. She opened a file. Security log extracts. Printouts of my admin keystrokes. Terminal access. Terminal recordings. You documented everything, even when you didn't know who to trust. She looked up. That's what made you valuable. Micro Chalk. Valuable. Not trustworthy, not commendable, just useful. Like a surveillance camera that didn't know it was on. You've been reassigned, she said. Where? She didn't answer. Just slid a sealed envelope across the table. Inside, temporary access badge, new badge number encrypted key fob, a card that read, Server node Delta, subfloor access. You'll report through indirect logs only, no direct communication unless prompted. I looked up. You're ghosting me. No, she replied calmly. We're activating you. Micro Chalk. I walked out of room B5 feeling like I had never really entered it, like they hadn't hired me. They'd collected me. At 4:03 p.m., my old workstation was scrubbed, wiped clean, badge scanner reset. Even the coffee mug was gone. Leanne caught me at the elevator. Did you know? She asked. I shook my head. Not until I saw my name at the bottom of the contractor list. She hesitated. I don't know if I should say this, but that's what they do. They recruit from within. Find the people who notice what they're not supposed to. Are you scared for me? I asked. No, she said, voice quiet. I'm scared of you. That night, I opened the access node under the building, the server room's forgotten twin. Dark, quiet, off-grid. I swiped the new badge, lights clicked on, dim, sterile, and there, in the center of the room, a single terminal, waiting. The terminal in the subfloor server room didn't hum. It breathed. A low, steady inhale of power, punctuated by the blinking green light near its base. Not fast, not urgent, but aware. I stood in front of it for a long time, badge still warm in my palm, wondering what kind of system needed this level of isolation. Not protection, containment. When I finally logged in, the interface didn't resemble anything above ground. No folders, no desktop, just a line of text. Protocol initiated awaiting query, like a riddle or a dare. I typed log trace, HR training override. SICX result, archived locked redirected to engineer class 7 obsolete branch. My heart skipped. Obsolete branch, Micro Chalk. I pulled the obsolete branch's access tree. It traced back to a legacy contractor account, created 3 years before I was hired. It had been active every quarter since. Labeled engineer, shadow access, compliance mirror, and beneath it, a new name. Leon. I froze. Leon? I searched again, manually this time. No mistake. Her name had been inserted into the mirror structure a year ago. Not recent. Not reactionary. Planned. I sat down slowly, pulled the security log diff tracker, compared her movements from the last 7 days to mine. She hadn't just helped. She had led. Every discovery we made together was real, but not accidental. She steered, nudged. Let me believe I found it first. Micro Chalk. But why? I checked the message headers from the compliance ticket she told me to submit. They were copied. Carbon to a chain I hadn't noticed. A silent observer email group. Ghost tier delta.node. The The kind of address that doesn't autocomplete, that doesn't exist in the employee directory. And every one of my reports, she forwarded them there. The final line of her last forward chilled me. Subject is stabilizing. Adaptation to containment acceptable. Recommendation, integrate. I leaned back. Leon didn't betray me. She recruited me, without my permission, without my awareness, with precision. And I walked into the net thinking it was my own trap. Micro Kruchok. The terminal pinged again. New message. Access escalated. Welcome. Primary engineer, Delta Mirror. No passcode request, no two-factor auth. It knew me now, or what it had made me into. I looked around the subfloor server room. It wasn't forgotten. It was grown, fed by people like me, people who thought they were uncovering something. But we weren't exposing it. We were becoming it. I touched the screen. Typed, query, Leanne, origin access denied. Then a message popped up. Curiosity is compliance. Compliance is loyalty. Loyalty is legacy. I should have felt trapped. But what I felt was worse. I felt useful. Monday came again. But this time, the air didn't smell like burnt coffee or stale air conditioning. It smelled like clean metal, like new cabling, like a system that had just recompiled itself. I took the elevator to sublevel 2. My badge didn't beep anymore. It simply accepted me. No green light, no sound, just silent permission. I passed 3 doors, each unmarked, each colder than the last. At the end of the corridor, a single strip of LED lighting led to a terminal bench where 2 engineers sat. People I didn't know, didn't recognize, didn't expect to speak. They didn't turn around. They didn't need to. They already knew I was coming. One of them slid a folder to the edge of the bench, a single line handwritten across the front. Tier 4 integration notes, Delta branch lead, provisional. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I approached the central terminal, the one I now controlled. But I wasn't here to type. I was here to watch. The system unfolded in front of me. Every access policy, every audit node, every ghost credential, every mirrored engineer, every accidental escalation, each one like a vein. And I was the heartbeat. Micro Kruchok. I thought I had survived the attack. I hadn't realized I'd survived the initiation. On the second monitor, a new log began to auto-populate. Recruitment candidates, flagged for Delta observation. Column A, name column. B, access behavior patterns. Column C, psychological stability. Column D, shadow training potential. I recognized one name immediately. Carl, the quiet engineer, always observing, always listening. There was a note next to his name. Unaware, promising, recommend passive trigger via Tier 2 conflict. Trigger, I opened the note field. A series of options appeared. Create false audit alert, escalate badge clearance, delay VPN sync, attribute to user, observe response pattern. They weren't recruiting. They were building patterns. Every mistake I thought I'd made, every panic, every suspicion, simulated, observed, measured. And now I was the observer. The system didn't just protect secrets. It manufactured them, curated them, then watched how people responded. Micro Kruchok. I stared at Carl's name, my finger hovering over the deploy button. Was this how Leon had felt when she nudged me? Was she conflicted? Or was she proud? I didn't know, because I couldn't feel the difference anymore. I pressed deploy, watched as the system acknowledged the command. Then I looked around the room again. The cold, the silence, the infinite calm of a machine that no longer needed trust to function. Only obedience. I wasn't erased. I was rewritten. Not an employee, not an investigator, not even a whistleblower. I was now what the system needed most. A believer.